More on where negotiations stand and whether a deal can be reached before the deadline. We are joined by Michigan Democratic Congressman Sandy Levin. Thank you so much for being here with us today.
Glad to be with you.
Well, as I mentioned, we're learning that negotiations have hit a major setback over a Republican offer that includes entitlement changes. Majority Leader Harry Reid said he has not been able to make a counteroffer to Republicans. What exactly are you hearing?
I'm hearing just that. I think that the decision by Senator McConnell to bring up change CPI is not a helpful step. It would affect the benefits for Social Security recipients, also for veterans, also for those on disability. So in a word, I think it is not a step forward. I think they need to essentially drop that. I think what needs to happen is they focus on the middle-class tax cuts. There are going to be millions and millions affected by that. The same with the alternative minimum tax. That would affect 25 million people. Their taxes would go up. I think the Republicans simply have to accept the notion that middle-class tax cuts must continue while those for the upper income must end. That's the basic issue, and I think throwing in CPI at this point is not helpful.
Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell said he's reached out to the Vice President, Joe Biden. We've actually heard that he has a better relationship with Joe Biden than the President himself. Do you think that they will be able to break this impasse in such a short amount of time?
I don't know. I think Senator McConnell's decision to bring up change CPI, entitlement reform, as I said, is not helpful. That all has to be discussed as part of long-term entitlement discussions, not to be brought up really at the last minute. So I don't think bringing in the Vice President is going to resolve that issue. My guess is the Vice President is going to say, let's focus on the middle-class tax cuts. Let's make sure they continue. Let's make sure we also look at unemployment insurance. 2 million people are losing their benefits as we stand here. Also the alternative minimum tax, which would affect 20 million taxpayers. That's where the focus has to be right now, and I don't think it's helpful for Senator McConnell to shift the focus away from that. Those issues of entitlement reform need to be considered on a long-term, on a basis considering the long term, not injected into these short-term negotiations that are now facing the crisis of 48 hours.
Well, last week in The Hill, you wrote, and I want to read it to you, today's Republican Party is dangerously close to abandoning any ability to work on a bipartisan basis. Columnist David Brooks also lays blame on the Republicans, but listen to what he had to say about the president.
If I default President Obama, I would say that sometimes he governs like a visitor from a morally superior civilization. He comes in here and he will not, he'll talk with Boehner. He won't talk with the other Republicans. He hasn't built the trust.
So, has the president and the Democrats, do you think that they've done enough to build trust on the other side?
I think so. I've been here 30 years now. This Republican conference in the House is more hard-edged, more hard-bitten than has been true almost all the time I've been here. There's been, in a sense, a radicalization of the Republican conference here in the House, and that makes it very difficult to negotiate. The president has been talking with the speaker. He made an offer. It was essentially rejected by the speaker. He then comes up, the speaker does, with another alternative. It's turned down by the conference that he's supposed to lead. I think all of that has made this a more difficult proposition, and I think the president, he has all cuts in spending. Essentially, it's been very difficult to deal with this Republican majority now in the House. And what I'm hopeful of in this very, very critical last 48 hours is that the Senate will act, they'll find some common ground, and I also hope that if that doesn't happen, that the proposal will be put up, cut middle-class tax cuts, not those for the higher income, do UI, unemployment insurance for 2 million people, also the alternative minimum tax. Let that be brought up on the Senate, brought over to the House, and let's vote on it. That's, I think, the best way to break this stalemate, to test whether there's flexibility. I think the president has been very much engaged. I think he's tried to reach out. It's hard to reach out if on the other side there really is a very, very hard edge. It's difficult.
All right, Democratic Congressman Sandy Levin, thank you very much.
Thank you.
With these new developments,